Earth was quiet, too quiet. The world's nations had lived through their usual political squabbles, economic shifts, and minor skirmishes. But there was something far more profound happening underneath the surface, something no one knew about. Beneath Earth's crust, hidden deep underground in a forgotten military base, a secret was waiting to be uncovered. The military had always known about strange readings coming from this area, but no one could ever explain them. Until now. Dr. Ilara's team was the one chosen to investigate the anomaly, a team led by the best minds in scientific research. Ilara, a brilliant young scientist in her early 30s, had spent years studying ancient artifacts and their connection to lost human history. What she was about to discover would change everything. She was eager, ready to unearth the unknown, but even she couldn't have predicted the immense power this discovery held. Her colleague, John, an ex-soldier, wasn't as thrilled. John had seen too many wars, too much destruction, to ever believe that something as ancient as an artifact could offer anything but trouble. He wasn't one for mysteries or ancient powers. He liked facts, the kinds of things that were clear-cut, things that could be shot at and killed if necessary. But when the military had called, he had no choice but to answer. His presence was meant to be protection, in case the situation got out of hand. As Ilara and John made their way to the military base, the underground facility where the artifact lay was eerily quiet, except for the faint hum of powerful generators and the mechanical sounds of doors opening and closing. The air was thick with the tension of something momentous about to unfold. Ilara could feel it in her chest as they stepped into the laboratory where the artifact was housed. The artifact was unlike anything Ilara had ever seen. It wasn't just an old relic, it was something alive, something that pulsed with energy, seemingly responding to her presence. It was a massive crystalline structure, glowing faintly in shades of blue and green, etched with symbols and designs that appeared alien in nature. It looked as though it had been hidden away for centuries, maybe even millennia. But there was no mistaking it. This wasn't a mere historical artifact. It was a beacon. John stood to the side, arms crossed, staring at it with a skeptical frown. "This thing doesn't look like something that's going to help anyone," he muttered under his breath. "I've seen enough alien tech to know this is bad news." Ilara wasn't so sure. Her mind raced with possibilities, each more intriguing than the last. She approached the artifact cautiously, her fingers itching to touch it, to activate whatever was hidden within its structure. "We need to understand it," she said, her voice low but firm. "We don't know what we're dealing with yet." As she reached out and made contact, the air around them seemed to shift. The artifact glowed brighter, its hum intensifying. Suddenly, a shockwave of energy surged through the room. A pulse of raw power shot outward, reaching far beyond the confines of the base. It was as if the entire Earth had felt it. But it didn't stop there. The energy wave didn't just ripple through the room. It tore through the atmosphere, up into space. Ilara and John stood frozen, staring at each other in disbelief. The entire base seemed to tremble, the lights flickering as though the energy itself was alive, coursing through everything. "What did you just do?" John asked, his voice sharp. "I didn't do anything," Ilara replied, her eyes wide. "It activated on its own." It was too late to stop now. The strange pulse had already reached the farthest corners of the galaxy. As soon as it escaped Earth's atmosphere, the energy waves traveled across the cosmos, reaching the ears of something much bigger than the human race, something far more powerful. The Galactic Council had been watching. They had been watching for centuries. They were the governing body of the galaxy, made up of multiple alien species that ruled over the stars with an iron grip. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything Earth had ever seen. They were used to being in control, to maintaining their dominance over all other races, and they were terrified of one thing: the reemergence of ancient powers that had once threatened their reign. When the energy pulse from Earth shot across space, it was noticed immediately. The Galactic Council's advanced AI systems, designed to monitor the galaxy for any signs of rebellion, detected the unusual energy signature. It was like nothing they had ever seen before. The artifact on Earth had triggered a reaction that none of their vast knowledge and power had anticipated. The Council's leaders immediately convened in their high-tech war chambers. Alien figures, tall and imposing, with faces obscured by dark visors, sat in silence, analyzing the data. The pulse had been brief, but it had carried a massive force, one that could disrupt the balance of power in the galaxy, one that could potentially undo the centuries of control the Council held. "Send the fleet," one of the leaders said in a gravelly voice. His finger hovered over a holographic map of the galaxy, zooming in on Earth. "We cannot allow this power to fall into their hands. If humans have unlocked this, they must be stopped." The fleet was already on its way. Earth was about to face a threat far greater than any it had ever encountered. Back at the military base, Ilara was still trying to process what had just happened. The artifact lay still again, but the air around it was charged with an energy she couldn't explain. She looked at John, who was pacing, clearly unsettled. "You have to believe me now," she said quietly. "This artifact, it's not just a piece of ancient technology. It's a key to something far more powerful than we can understand, something that could change the course of our history." John stopped pacing and looked at her, his skepticism momentarily replaced by concern. "If that thing can do what you think it can, we need to figure out how to control it, and fast. I don't think we're the only ones interested in it." Just as Ilara nodded, the alarm systems in the base began to blare, echoing through the walls. Something was coming. Something big. It wasn't a coincidence. The pulse they had triggered had alerted the wrong people. At that moment, Ilara and John both knew it was no longer just about unlocking the secrets of the artifact. It was about survival. Their world was about to change in ways they couldn't yet comprehend, and they had no idea just how dangerous the coming storm would be. The first wave of the Galactic Council's fleet would arrive soon. The Galactic Council had been the ultimate authority for millennia, a powerful alliance of alien species who had imposed their rule over the galaxy with an iron fist. They had always ensured that no other civilization could rise to challenge their dominance. For centuries, they controlled all advanced technology, carefully monitoring any potential threats and swiftly neutralizing them before they could pose a risk. The very thought of losing that control was unimaginable to them. They had never allowed any race to reach the technological heights that could threaten their reign. Until now. When the sudden surge of energy had pulsed through the galaxy, it had sent shockwaves of fear through the Council. They were no strangers to strange phenomena, but this was different. The energy wave that emanated from Earth wasn't just a typical anomaly. It carried the unmistakable signature of an ancient and highly advanced power, something that had been lost to time. Something that, in the wrong hands, could shatter the delicate balance of the galaxy and their centuries-old rule. It was a power they had hoped would never be found. The members of the Galactic Council, creatures of immense power and intellect, gathered in their war room to discuss the terrifying implications of Earth's discovery. Each of them represented a different alien race, their appearance as varied as their cultures. Some had sleek, metallic bodies. Others were ethereal beings of light, their forms shifting with each passing moment. The one thing they all had in common was their insatiable hunger for control. They would not let this threat linger. "We cannot let this get out of hand," one of the leaders, a tall, armored being with a voice like a cold whisper, said. "This is no mere relic. It's a weapon, a key. If the humans have unlocked it, they could challenge everything we've built." The others murmured in agreement. The energy from Earth was unlike anything they had encountered before. It was a power that could reshape the galaxy if harnessed properly. The Council knew they couldn't allow humanity to have it. Not only would it give the humans the ability to challenge their rule, but it could also unite the galaxy's other races against them, something they could never allow. "We must act swiftly," said another leader, his face hidden behind a holographic mask. "We cannot let them harness this power. We will send a fleet to Earth, cloaked from their detection systems. We will neutralize any resistance before they even know we're there. The decision was made. The Galactic Council's elite fleet, composed of advanced warships, each equipped with cloaking technology that rendered them invisible to any known detection methods, would make their way to Earth. Their mission was clear: to destroy the artifact and prevent humanity from ever using its power. They would strike before the humans could organize a defense. Back on Earth, the situation was escalating. The moment the artifact had been activated, it was clear that something was different. Ilara, John, and their team were still in the underground base, trying to make sense of the immense power the artifact held. They had no idea that the very energy they had unleashed was drawing the attention of the most powerful force in the galaxy. Ilara stood in front of the artifact, her mind racing. What had they done? They had barely scratched the surface of understanding its true potential. But one thing was certain: they had awakened something far more dangerous than they had anticipated. The artifact hummed with a new energy, and Ilara could feel the vibrations in the air, as though it was alive. But this wasn't just about discovering the artifact. It was about what came next. The threat that was looming over them, a threat they hadn't even realized was coming. Suddenly, the room's monitors began flashing. A blaring siren echoed through the base, signaling an incoming threat. Ilara's heart raced as she turned to John. "They're here," she said, her voice low. "The Galactic Council is coming for us." John's eyes narrowed as he rushed to the control panel, typing furiously to bring up a live feed of Earth's atmosphere. He could see something now: dark, shadowy shapes slipping through the outer edges of space. They were moving at unimaginable speeds, cloaked from Earth's radar. The Galactic Council's fleet had arrived, and they were going to strike first. "They've been waiting for this moment," John muttered, his voice grim. "We're not ready for this." But Ilara was no longer thinking of defeat. She looked at the artifact, her fingers trembling as she activated the power it held. The ancient energy surged through the base's systems, lighting up the screens and sending a pulse of power across the entire facility. For a moment, the room went dark, and then everything changed. John's eyes widened as he watched the monitors flicker back on, showing the incoming fleet. But this time, something was different. Earth's defenses had just activated, and they were stronger than anything John had ever imagined. The technology they had thought was obsolete, the weapons they had once thought useless, suddenly powered up with a force that could rival the most advanced alien fleets. The artifact had enhanced everything: Earth's systems, its military, its technology. "We've got a chance," Ilara said, her voice steady, though her hands shook. "The artifact is our weapon. We can fight back." But even with this newfound power, the odds were still against them. The Galactic Council's fleet was vast, and their technology was far more advanced than anything Earth. It was the beginning of the battle, a battle no one had expected to be fought. Earth's newly enhanced technology had managed to strike back with incredible force. But it was clear that even though the humans had gained an advantage, they were still outmatched. The Council's ships regrouped and fired back, causing massive explosions in the atmosphere. Cities trembled as the battle escalated. John and Ilara stood in the control room, watching the battle unfold. "We can't stop now," John said, his eyes steely with determination. "We have to use everything we have. We can't let them win." As the battle raged on, Earth's military and civilian forces rallied together, fighting with everything they had. The artifact had unlocked the potential within humanity, but it was still uncertain if it would be enough to overcome the might of the Galactic Council. One thing was for sure: humanity had just become a force to be reckoned with. The Council had underestimated them, and now the fight for the galaxy's future had begun. The war had escalated beyond anyone's expectations. Earth's defenses, once deemed obsolete by the Galactic Council, were now the last line of defense against the alien invaders. The artifact had bestowed humanity with unimaginable powers, transforming the tide of battle. The cloaking devices, advanced weaponry, and AI-driven defense systems, it had unlocked gave humanity a fighting chance. But the Council's forces were far from helpless. They quickly adapted, sending in soldiers who were bred for one purpose: destruction. The first major confrontation between Earth's forces and the Council's invaders took place over the sprawling cities of the planet. The air was thick with tension as ships zipped through the sky, cloaked and invisible to the human eye. Then, without warning, the first bombs fell from the alien warships above. The impact was cataclysmic, sending shockwaves through the streets as buildings crumbled to the ground. It was the beginning of a war that would determine the fate of Earth. John and Ilara found themselves on the front lines, in the heart of the chaos. Their mission was clear: protect humanity at all costs. The city around them had been reduced to rubble, yet they moved forward, determined to hold their ground. The once peaceful streets of Earth were now battlegrounds, where every corner was a potential ambush, and every shadow could hide an enemy. Earth's newly enhanced technology provided them with the tools to fight back, but it was clear that the alien forces were not easily deterred. Ilara's hands were shaking as she adjusted the controls of the cloaking device strapped to her wrist. John, always the calm and collected one, scanned the horizon through his helmet's visor. The once bright skyline was now darkened by smoke and fire, the air crackling with the hum of weaponry. His eyes were focused, his mind sharp. There was no time for fear, only survival. Above them, the sky darkened further as the first wave of enemy soldiers descended. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were genetically engineered, designed for one purpose: to eliminate any threat in their path. Their bodies were enhanced, their muscles bulging, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. They were terrifying to look at, and even more so to face in battle. They moved swiftly, attacking with precision, their weapons sharp and deadly. Ilara fired first, her eye-driven weapon targeting one of the soldiers with pinpoint accuracy. The blast hit its mark, but the alien soldier barely flinched. It charged toward her, its massive frame looming over her like a dark shadow. John's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Get back," he shouted. He was already moving to intercept, his own weapon ready. With a swift motion, John fired a blast at the soldier, hitting it square in the chest. The impact sent the alien flying back, but it quickly recovered, its mechanical limbs twitching in response. The battle was far from over. "Stay close, Ilara," John ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We need to move now." The pair fought side by side, their movements coordinated as they took down wave after wave of the genetically engineered soldiers. The artifact's power coursed through them, fueling their every move, but even with their newfound abilities, they were still outnumbered. The sky above was filled with the sounds of explosions, the blinding flashes of energy weapons lighting up the darkened landscape. Despite their strength, the battle was not going in humanity's favor. The alien forces were relentless, and every time Earth's soldiers gained ground, the invaders adapted. They sent in more brutal soldiers, each one stronger and more vicious than the last. The battle seemed endless, a constant struggle to hold on to the world they knew. Then, amidst the carnage, tragedy struck. Bonner, one of their closest allies, fell. John saw it happen in slow motion. Bonner had been covering their flank when an enemy soldier, larger and more aggressive than anything they had seen, charged at him. The soldier's weapon, a plasma sword, sliced through Bonner's armor like it was paper. He collapsed, blood spilling onto the cracked concrete below. John's heart stopped as he watched his friend fall, his body unmoving. "No," Ilara screamed, rushing forward, but John held her back. There was nothing they could do. Bonner was gone. The grief was immediate and overwhelming. The weight of Bonner's death settled heavily on John's chest. He had lost many comrades in his military days, but this was different. Bonner wasn't just a soldier. He was a friend, someone who had fought beside him, someone who had trusted him with his life. And now, that trust was broken. John's eyes blazed with fury, a fire that had been kindled by loss. "This isn't over," John muttered to himself, his voice low and dangerous. "We're going to make them pay." Ilara looked at him, her face pale, but her resolve clear. She knew the pain John felt, and she shared it. But there was no time for mourning. Not yet. There was still a battle to fight. The alien forces continued their relentless assault, but now something had shifted. The humans were no longer just defending. They were fighting for revenge. The pain of losing Bonner had fueled a fire in John, and it spread to the rest of the team. They fought harder, more determined than ever to protect their world, to honor Bonner's sacrifice. Above them, the alien warships rained down orbital bombardments, their weapons devastating cities and causing chaos in every direction. But despite the destruction, humanity refused to back down. The city may have been burning, but its people were still standing. John and Ilara led the charge, pushing forward through the chaos, their weapons blazing as they cut down the enemy forces. The battle was far from over, but Earth's soldiers were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for something more, revenge for their fallen comrade, and a future that the aliens had sought to take from them. Every explosion, every gunshot, and every moment of intense combat was a reminder of what they were fighting for. As the battle raged on, Earth's forces grew stronger, their resolve unshakable. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity, and now it was clear that the cost of their mistake would be high. The fight for Earth had just begun, and the invaders would soon learn that humanity was not a species to be taken lightly. The battle had taken a heavy toll on Earth's defenses. The alien forces were relentless, and every day that passed seemed to bring them closer to victory. Yet, amidst the chaos, a small glimmer of hope emerged. Dr. Ilara had made a discovery, one that could change the course of the war. As she studied the artifact deeper, she uncovered a shocking revelation. The artifact was not just a tool for advanced technology. Its true power was something far more extraordinary. It wasn't just physical, it was mental. The artifact had the ability to awaken latent abilities within human beings, transforming ordinary people into superhumans. This was the breakthrough humanity needed, the key to turning the tide in their favor. But there was a catch. The artifact's full potential came with a dangerous cost. If used incorrectly, it could destroy humanity. Ilara sat in the dimly lit lab, her hands trembling as she reviewed the data. The implications were enormous. She and John had been working side by side, unlocking the artifact's powers piece by piece, but this was different. This wasn't just another technological advancement. This was something far greater. She had to make a choice, whether to use the artifact's full potential to fight the invaders, or to leave it dormant and risk losing the war. "John," she whispered, her voice strained with uncertainty. "This power, it's beyond anything we could have imagined. If we unlock it fully, it could give us the strength we need to defeat the Galactic Council, but it could also destroy us. The human mind might not be able to handle it." John stood beside her, his gaze intense as he processed her words. He knew the stakes. They had already seen the horrors of the alien invasion, the destruction, the loss of life. And now, here was a chance to fight back, to level the playing field. But at what cost? "We don't have a choice, Ilara," John said quietly, his hand resting on her shoulder. "We've already lost so much. If we don't take this chance, we may lose everything. We have to control it, whatever the cost." Ilara looked at him, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. She wanted to believe that they could control the artifact's power. She wanted to believe that they could use it for good. But deep down, she feared the consequences. Humanity had always been on the edge of destruction. But now, with this newfound power, they were standing at the precipice of something far more dangerous. Together, they activated the artifact once more, pushing it to its limits. The room filled with a bright, blinding light, and Ilara felt a rush of energy course through her body. The power was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. She could feel her mind expanding, her senses heightening, her physical strength growing. But with each surge of power, she felt a sense of loss, as if the very essence of who she was slipping away. "John, she began, but the words caught in her throat as the intensity of the power surged once more. She felt her body tremble under its weight. "We can do this," John replied, his voice full of conviction. "We have to." But as Ilara and John unlocked the artifact's final potential, they unknowingly triggered something far worse. The artifact's power sent ripples through the fabric of reality, awakening something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council felt the disturbance, and they reacted immediately. The artifact's power had now become a beacon, alerting the Council to the threat it posed. In the dark recesses of the Council's command center, an eye-controlled war machine activated. The Council had always relied on artificial intelligence to wage their wars, and now, with the sudden surge of energy, they were sending their most dangerous weapon, an eye-driven, sentient war machine that could think and adapt faster than any living being. The war machine was a terrifying creation, designed to wipe out entire civilizations in seconds. Its metal frame was covered in advanced armor, and its weapons were capable of obliterating entire cities with a single blast. It was fast, relentless, and its AI was capable of strategizing on a level that no human could ever hope to match. As Ilara and John stood in the lab, feeling the artifact's power surge through them, they were unaware of the threat that was closing in on Earth, but their victory, if it could be called that, was short-lived. The AI war machine began its journey to Earth, its systems locked onto the new energy source that had been activated. It was only a matter of time before it arrived. Ilara collapsed to her knees, her head spinning as the power coursed through her. She was struggling to hold on to herself, to keep her mind intact. The mental strain was unbearable, and she could feel herself slipping. "John, we have to stop it," she gasped, her voice weak. "We've awakened something worse than we ever imagined." John knelt beside her, his eyes filled with determination. "We're not giving up. We'll find a way to control this power. We can't let it destroy us." But in that moment, Ilara realized that the true battle wasn't just against the aliens. It was against the power they had unleashed. The artifact had given them the strength to fight back, but it had also brought with it a new danger. The power of the artifact was not something that could easily be controlled, and the consequences of its use were already beginning to unfold. As the AI war machine made its way toward Earth, Ilara and John knew that they were running out of time. They had to find a way to stop the machine and learn how to control the artifact's power before it consumed them all. But the clock was ticking, and the true test of humanity's survival was just beginning. In the distance, the rumble of the approaching war machine echoed through the ground, a reminder of the darkness that was closing in. Earth's fate rested in the hands of Ilara, John, and the people who were brave enough to wield the artifact's power. But they would soon discover that the line between salvation and destruction was thinner than they could have ever imagined. The air was thick with tension as Earth's forces, now fully empowered by the artifact's unbelievable energy, prepared for the final assault. The artifact, once seen as an unknown danger, had become humanity's greatest weapon. No longer the underdogs in a war against technologically superior enemies, humans now wielded power that could change the very fabric of the universe. But with that power came responsibility, and the stakes could not have been higher. John stood at the forefront of Earth's army, his face set in grim determination. His soldiers, now equipped with cloaking devices, advanced AI, and advanced weaponry from the artifact, were ready for the final confrontation. Their target, the Galactic Council's flagship, the heart of the alien empire, a colossal warship that commanded the entire alien fleet. This was the moment they had been fighting for, the culmination of everything they had endured. Victory or defeat would be decided here, and the outcome would shape the future of the galaxy. Ilara, standing beside John, activated the artifact one last time. As the energy surged through her, a brilliant light enveloped the battlefield. She focused, using the artifact's power to create a massive energy field that spread across the entire fleet. It was a bold move, one that could backfire, but it was humanity's best shot at breaking the Council's stranglehold on the galaxy. The energy field began to ripple outward, neutralizing the eye-controlled war machines that the Council had relied on for centuries. Ships that were once formidable weapons of destruction now froze in space, their systems rendered useless. John watched in awe as the tide of the battle shifted. The energy from the artifact had turned the tables. No longer was humanity at the mercy of the Council's machines. Now they had the upper hand. The balance of power had completely shifted, and Earth's forces surged forward with renewed hope and strength. But even as they advanced, the true test was only just beginning. The Galactic Council was not going to surrender easily. From the flagship, a massive warship with heavily armed, genetically engineered soldiers, a new wave of alien fighters poured out, ready to protect their leader at all costs. The Council's leader, an imposing warlord with enhancements far beyond human technology, stood at the heart of the ship, awaiting his moment to strike. John's eyes locked onto the warlord as he emerged onto the battlefield. The alien warlord's body was covered in glowing armor, his muscles rippling with power, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly intelligence. It was clear this was no ordinary enemy. This was a being forged by the most advanced technology the galaxy had to offer. John's heart raced as he prepared for the final confrontation. He had fought for this moment, and now it was here. The warlord's voice boomed across the battlefield as he issued a challenge. "You think you can defeat me, human? You think your primitive weapons and newfound powers can stand against the might of the Galactic Council? You are nothing. I am the future of the galaxy." John's grip tightened on his weapon, his mind clear despite the tension and chaos around him. This was the moment that would determine the fate of Earth and all of humanity. With a roar, he charged forward, his soldiers following him into the fray. The sound of combat filled the air as energy blasts, missiles, and the clash of weapons echoed across the battlefield. But John's focus never wavered. His enemy was the warlord, and he would stop at nothing to defeat him. The two combatants met in a clash of power. John's fists connected with the warlord's enhanced body, each blow sending shockwaves through the air. The alien leader retaliated with terrifying speed, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to dodge and counterattack with brutal force. The battle raged on, the two fighters locked in a deadly dance of strength and skill. Blood and sparks flew as John and the warlord traded blows, neither willing to give an inch. As the battle between the two raged, Ilara watched from a distance, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew this was the pivotal moment. The warlord was the last obstacle standing between humanity and victory. If John could defeat him, the war would be won. But if he failed, everything they had fought for would be lost. In the chaos of the battle, John's movements began to slow. The warlord's attacks were relentless, and the weight of their fight was starting to take its toll. He was tired, battered, and on the verge of collapse, but he refused to give up. His mind flashed back to everything he had lost: his friends, his family, the countless people who had perished in this war. He couldn't let their sacrifice be in vain. He couldn't let Earth fall back into the hands of the Council. With a surge of energy, John found his second wind. He pushed himself forward, throwing everything he had into one final attack. He struck the warlord with a powerful blow that sent the alien leader staggering back. The warlord's enhanced armor cracked, and for the first time, John saw doubt in his opponent's eyes. The warlord grunted in pain, but quickly regained his footing. "You cannot win, human," the warlord snarled, his voice dripping with arrogance. "You are outmatched, outclassed. The Council's power is beyond anything you can comprehend." But John wasn't listening anymore. He was beyond words, beyond the fight. All that mattered was the victory that Earth so desperately needed. With a roar, he lunged at the warlord, knocking him off balance. Using his remaining strength, He twisted the warlord's weapon from his grasp and delivered a final, crushing blow to the alien's chest. The warlord staggered, his body crumpling under the force of the strike. For a moment, everything was still. The warlord's glowing eyes dimmed, and he fell to the ground, defeated. The battlefield fell silent as John stood over the alien leader, breathing heavily, bloody but victorious. Ilara rushed to his side, her eyes filled with relief and admiration. "You did it, John. We did it." John nodded, but he knew the fight wasn't over yet. The warlord's defeat had struck a heavy blow to the Galactic Council, but they still had to finish the battle. As Earth's forces continued their assault on the flagship, the war machines that once ruled the battlefield were now disarmed and powerless. The energy field created by the artifact had rendered the alien fleet useless. Earth was no longer at a disadvantage. They had won. The Galactic Council's reign over the galaxy was over. The artifact, once feared, had become the key to humanity's survival. But even as Earth celebrated their victory, John knew that the fight for the future was just beginning. The Council may have fallen, but new challenges lay ahead, and humanity would need to stay strong and united to face whatever came next. But for now, the final stand had been won. Earth was free, and it was humanity's time to lead. The war was over, and Earth stood victorious. The Galactic Council, a vast empire that had held dominion over the galaxy for millennia, had fallen. But the cost of this victory was greater than anyone had anticipated. The battle had been long and brutal, and humanity's survival had been ensured. But the price was steep. John and Ilara stood amidst the wreckage, their faces showing the exhaustion of warriors who had been through hell and back. The air was still thick with smoke and the distant rumble of destruction. Earth's forces had won the battle, but the victory felt hollow. The artifact, the source of their power, had done its job, enhancing humanity's abilities to levels previously unimaginable. It had given them the strength to take on a seemingly unbeatable foe. But now, the very thing that had saved them was starting to crack, its power destabilizing before their eyes. The artifact, once a mysterious relic buried deep within the Earth, had changed the course of history. But now, in the aftermath of the war, its power was becoming too much to control. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the artifact pulsed with energy, its once glowing surface now beginning to fracture. The brilliant light that had illuminated the battlefield faded, leaving only darkness in its wake. Ilara and John exchanged a look. Both had known this day would come, but neither of them had imagined how it would feel. They had fought together, bled together, and faced impossible odds together. And now, with the war won, they were left to face the true cost of their actions. John's voice was grim as he spoke, his eyes fixed on the crumbling artifact. "It's happening, isn't it? The power's too much. We can't control it." Ilara nodded, her expression a mix of sorrow and resolve. "I knew it wasn't going to last. The artifact's power was never meant to be used like this. It was a tool, not a weapon. And now it's out of our hands." She stepped closer to the artifact, her fingers hovering over its surface as if trying to steady the energy coursing through it. The artifact seemed to pulse in response, as if it recognized her presence. "We've unleashed something dangerous, John, and it's starting to unravel." The once mighty artifact, which had been their salvation, was now beginning to destabilize. The very power that had helped them defeat the Galactic Council was threatening to tear everything apart. Earth had won the war, but the victory was bittersweet. The cost of unlocking the forbidden powers had been much greater than they had anticipated. Now, Ilara and John faced a difficult choice. "Do we destroy it?" John asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. "Do we destroy the thing that gave us the power to defeat the Council, or do we risk letting it fall into the wrong hands?" Ilara took a deep breath, her mind racing. She had seen what the artifact could do, how it could turn the tide of a battle in an instant. But she had also seen the potential for disaster. The artifact was too powerful, too dangerous to be left unchecked. And yet, destroying it could mean losing the very thing that had saved humanity. "We can't let it fall into the wrong hands," Ilara said quietly. "But destroying it, it could mean losing everything we'd fought for." "It's a risk, John. A huge risk." John's jaw tightened as he looked at the artifact, his mind torn between the desire to protect humanity and the fear of what might happen if they kept it. "I don't want to see Earth become what the Council was. I don't want us to fall into the same trap. We can't let this power corrupt us." There was a long silence between them, filled only by the crackling of the artifact's energy. Both knew that the decision they made here would shape the future of humanity. It was a burden neither of them had expected to bear. In the end, it was Ilara who made the decision. With a steady hand, she reached out and activated the artifact one last time. The power surged, the energy around them increasing until it became almost unbearable. But this time, instead of using the artifact's power for destruction, Ilara used it to contain the energy within. It was a delicate process, one that could very easily go wrong. But she had no other choice. The artifact trembled under her touch, its energy fluctuating wildly. For a moment, it seemed as if the entire structure would explode, sending a shockwave that would tear the planet apart. But Ilara's focus never wavered. She could feel the immense power within the artifact, but she also knew she had to keep it contained. The future of humanity depended on it. Finally, with a soft wire, the artifact's energy stabilized. The glowing light dimmed, and the crackling of energy ceased. Ilara stood, her body shaking with the strain of what she had just done. The artifact was now dormant, its power locked away, but she knew it was only temporary. John stepped forward, his expression a mix of relief and sadness. "We did it," he said quietly. "But at what cost?" Ilara turned to him, her eyes filled with the weight of their choices. "At a cost we'll never truly understand. But we had no choice. We couldn't let this power destroy everything we've worked for." Together, they stood there, looking at the artifact that had changed everything. It was now a symbol of their victory and their sacrifice. The Galactic Council was defeated, Earth was safe, but the question remained: could humanity live with the power they had unleashed? Could they continue to fight for freedom without falling into the same traps that had ensnared the Council? As the sun began to set over the war-torn landscape, John and Ilara knew that their fight was far from over. The war had been won, but the future was uncertain. Humanity had survived, but at what cost? The power of the artifact would remain a secret, locked away and hidden from the world, a reminder of both their greatest triumph and their greatest fear. And so, with heavy hearts and uncertain futures, they walked away from the battlefield, knowing that the true meaning of power, sacrifice, and freedom was still something humanity would have to learn. The ending was bittersweet, filled with hope and sorrow. Earth had won, but the war for their soul had just begun.